Wait, how do you pick up the spoon?
You have to have dropped it first. Oh, there it is.
Good job, Luke.
There it is.
Hi, everybody. I'm Scott,
And I'm Luke.
I'm Jonathan
and this is the No Way to Hollywood podcast. Thanks for joining us
with ice cream.
with ice cream, which we'll be eating the entire episode.
This hasn't happened yet.
Or has it?
The eating of the ice cream hasn't happened yet.
I plan to eat it both now and in reverse.
Don't eat inverted ice cream. It'll burn your tongue.
Oh, God! All right. You know what we're talking about today? You probably saw it in the title.
We're talking about Tenet because we finally all watched the movie.
I did.
I did.
I watched it a long time ago.
It hasn't happened yet.
You watched it a long time ago. Maybe it's the future. Did you go back and watch it?
No, see, what you don't understand, Scott, is you were watching the movie for me.
Oh! It makes total sense now.
Yeah, Luke is the inventor of Tenet.
Tenet.
Can it? What?
We probably should.
So, in tonight's episode, we are going to discuss, or try to discuss, why this movie isn't what we had hoped it would be.
Yeah, and you should keep your microphone a little closer, otherwise you're going to have the similar audio issues that they have.
How am I supposed to eat ice cream and hold my microphone at the same time?
We're all
then?
struggling right now.
I think mostly that all people are going to hear during this whole episode is this.
Smack you smack.
If you want to go get ice cream, the beautiful part about this is that you can pause, go get ice cream, and come back. Or you can let this continue to play, and you might not miss anything.
So, guys, let's start out by talking about what we knew going into the movie and how quickly we figured out the big reveals.
Wait, what big reveals?
The big ones.
Well,
The big ones. Oh!
Come on, man. The
So-
big ones.
Oh,
Going-
spoilers.
oh yes, there's plenty
Yeah,
of spoilers.
no, spoilers
but
out the
don't,
wazoo.
Don't worry about it because, honestly, even if we told you, it wouldn't make a difference.
You'll still know it, but you won't
So-
know it at all.
Coming into this movie, I mean, I knew there was going to be some like forwards, backwards stuff because of the previews, right? And
Sure.
my anticipation was that hopefully Nolan would do a good enough job with the time travel aspects of that it would still be believable. And to be perfectly honest, I think this movie falls into every time travel trap possible, right? The big reveal for me is the early fight sequence when some dude comes running out of this thing and he's fighting him and he doesn't know who he is because he's dressed all in black. And I realized before the end of the fight, he was fighting himself.
Samesies.
Okay, well, so I used to think I was a clever person. I used to think that I was intelligent and stuff.
Then he met us.
And I realized they're both idiots.
And then he realized he's insanely clever.
No. What I've discovered is that when I watch movies, I most of the time just go along for the ride. Unless there's something that's really bothering me and taking me out of the film, where then I become incredibly hypercritical. But in general, I'm like, you just let me roll this movie when you want to do it. So I wasn't even thinking about who that might be. I was just going along, and that continues like just all the time. Like whenever I watch movies, I'm like, oh, I didn't see that coming because I wasn't trying to. I wasn't trying to see around corners. I was just rolling along, and I like it when filmmakers or storytellers, even in books, like set it up to let you to be like, hey, start to realize this right before I tell you, so that you go, oh, I like that because then I feel it, and I try to go on that journey with people, not because I have to work really hard to try to do it, but because I'm just not clever enough, or I'm not alert enough, or whatever. Like I'm going on the movie going experience. So I did not have that. Oh, he's fighting himself. How boring.
I don't know that I had that necessarily either. I was well. This is just not clever enough for me, Mr. Nolan. I just like to say that part of the reason I'm pretty sure that I was able to figure it out was because when I saw this movie, what maybe not more than a month ago, and I had heard a lot about it already about how it was complicated, really hard to follow, really smart. So when I watched it, I had my A game on. I was paying attention to everything. I was thinking, like, I'm like, what is going on? What's happening? Get every detail. So part of my, I don't think I was being hypercritical of the movie per se, but I was paying attention to everything. So my mind was engaged on that level, and I have that ability half the time anyway. So with my mind engaged as well, I was like, it's gotta be him, right? Like what? And really, the thing was Robert Pattinson pulling off the mask, but we didn't see who it was. As soon as I didn't see who it was, I was like, oh, okay, it's got to be one of them. Anyway, so you say something.
Yeah, I mean,
Ice cream.
ice cream. I had it figured out pretty quick, but to me, it wasn't the Pattinson, character pulling off the mask with, and then us not seeing it. It was the way he literally walked back to the other character, right? And it was the
Oh, when you walk back to the protagonist of the film?
correct, whatever that dude's name was, because it's so
His
long
name
ago.
is
I don't remember.
protagonist.
Yeah,
dude.
he goes by the protagonist, which according to one video I say is like, this is actually brilliant because he's a spy, and so the spy, like, you never let somebody know what your name is, unlike James Bond, and he actually cuts to that, and it's great.
Yeah, but James Bond movies are more fun most of the time.
I would agree with you.
Most of the time. Although, okay, let's just take a step back. We're kind of getting into the weeds here. Maybe just general impressions of Tenet. You saw it 1st. Why don't you go first? What was your first impressions of Tenet?
And then we'll do the temporal pincer move, and Scott will go again.
These guys are trying to get me to talk, apparently. So yes, I actually had the opportunity to see this in the movie theater, the almost completely empty movie theater. I'm pretty sure there was like maybe 5 other people, and they were all at least 2 rows behind me.
Way to social distance. Good job, Scott.
And everyone was wearing a mask and trying to breathe and
Just getting into the character experience.
exactly, because we were traveling the wrong way through time to be watching this movie. And there's a chance that if you show me this movie in reverse, it would have about the same impact as showing it forwards.
I have not watched the video essay on listening to the music backward, but that might be interesting.
Could be. I actually did enjoy the movie when I saw it. There was a lot at the end of the movie. My general feeling about it was I kind of need to watch this again to make sure that I have everything actually right in my head. And part of that is some of the sound design makes it a little challenging and leaves you hanging, which we'll talk about later.
Or we've already talked about it.
Luke, would you travel forward through time for me? But it was an interesting concept. Like, I enjoyed it. I just thought there was enough complexity there that they didn't explain very well. That was frustrating. Like, the whole buddy that talks about, hey, I already know you because I've already met you, and I'm the one that's traveling backwards through time. Anyways, all of that was kind of like, okay. And a lot of my thinking was, okay, does this actually work? Like, I need to take the time to sit down and figure out, does this actually work? And that's where I think the movie actually does fall into some of the time travel traps of it's not possible, right?
Wait, time travel's not possible?
I mean, unless you're traveling slowly forwards through time consistently, just like everybody else. Even though I left the theater going, I want to see this again to make sure I got it right, I have had zero desire since then to actually go back and watch it again.
And why? Like, what is it about the movie that makes you be like, when you think like, hey, I could watch that again, you're like, never mind. What is it? What is that?
Well, I think the biggest thing is I'm not sure I want to take another 2 hours to see if I can figure out what's actually going on. Right. And
Especially when there's video essays online where you can just like in 10 minutes or less, you can understand what temporal is going on.
right. But there's just, I mean, to me, it seems like a waste of time to do the full 2 hours again. But at the same time, like, there's still part of me that's like, well, I enjoyed that. And there was some really cool visuals at different points. Like, I love the building unexploding and then re-exploding and during the final battle, the sequence.
Did you love that?
No, I did not love that.
I thought it was cool.
Cool.
It's like you guys are the inverse of each other.
Well, one of us is going forward
through time and the other is going backwards.
Yeah, but here's the really crazy thing. You're both the same person.
That's not
Yikes.
true. That is straight up not true.
I'm stuck in the middle.
I don't know. Okay, John, what were your initial thoughts when you watched this movie while I eat some ice cream?
Yes. Initial thoughts of this movie. So I had heard a lot about it, like I said, and I think that part of me liked it just because I thought I was smart, because I was like I was not left behind. I knew what every beat of the movie, like I knew what we were doing. I knew what the general concepts were. Granted, I'm not going to pretend that I knew every little detail and it all made sense to me and it was all logical. No, in part because I don't think it actually is fully formed and super logical and all makes complete sense. I mean, I'm sure Nolan and his brother Nolan and anybody else who had helped him on this film who likes to have mazes in their minds at all times and complex stories, thought real hard about this to make sure it was very consistent and worked. But even so, I think it was a little messy. But I enjoyed it. I had a good time watching it. I thought, I think my expectations for it got lower and lower the more I heard about it. Because I was kind of, when I first saw the trailers, I was curious because it's a Nolan film. I want to know what's going on. But the more that I realized, like, it's just this reverse thing, and I heard people saying it's complicated, and I don't really know, and it's Nolan doing the best stuff he does and also the worst stuff he does. That's kind of like, well, I don't need to see it. And then COVID made it like, yeah, I'm not seeing it for a while. But having watched it, I was like, oh yeah, this is, Nolan does a good job. This is enjoyable. This is fun. This is interesting. This is engaging. I want to know what happens next. And this is okay. Can I keep up with this? But do I need to see Tenet again? No, I don't need to see Tenet again. I'm sure in, however many years I'll be totally up for watching it again. But watching it the first time was fun enough, and I'm good now. I've had my Tenet experience, and I got some issues with a few things that happened in that movie. Some of the filmmaking choices that I understand to be apparently specific choices. But overall, it was entertaining. And stuff like Robert Pattinson at the end being all, yo, I already know you, and this is the end of our friendship, but it's the beginning of the friendship for you, and you've got a future in the past, because we like to say things that are confusing. I understood that completely, because I'm a science fiction junkie. I've seen Doctor Who. I've seen the Library episode 2-parter where Doctor Who, spoilers Doctor Who, where Doctor Who meets his wife for the first time, and it's the end of her life. And she knows him really well because they've been married for a while, for her experience. But he has just met her. And by the end of, beginning of the relationship, it's kind of reverse in such a way. Like, that's not a foreign concept if you've done enough science fiction. So it's complicated and it's all crazy stuff, but it's also not terribly complicated if you spent time in science fiction and time travel in particular. So those are some thoughts.
Luke?
So I have a kind of love-hate relationship with Nolan. I think I've mentioned this before. Like, I love some of his movies, and I hate some of his movies.
And it's like in every other
and it's pretty much in every other for me. And so I've actually stopped seeing some of his movies. I still haven't seen Dunkirk. Like, still haven't gotten around to it.
Don't worry about it.
that would have been the one that you're supposed to love because you didn't
Right,
like
yeah, because
Interstellar.
I did not like Interstellar
so
at
then
all.
Dunkirk was the one, baby.
Yeah, hopefully. So when it came to this one, I was like, unless people come back and they're just like, you have got to see this movie. Like, I don't know. I don't know if we'll get around to it. And so then Scott saw it, and he's like, meh.
That's true. You were like, you're all man. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, right. And then, yeah, I think you mentioned that you'd seen it.
You saw it before me.
Oh, that's right. I did see it before you. Okay.
And you were like,
meh.
meh.
Right, yeah. And
That's
so
typical for him.
Right. But then, I actually was watching a video essay about the movie and was kind of just like, okay, so what is this, is this film worth watching, right? And the video essay was like, yeah, there's some interesting stuff, but like, And so I was like, okay, so like I'm gonna just go find this thing online and just watch it. And of course, I'm also a parent, and so like I'm not gonna have like a sit down and watch this experience, which may also be contributing. And I'm sorry, Nolan, that I'm not watching it in the theater for you.
He's sorry he has kids, okay? Give the man a break. He's helping repopulate the human race.
I'm having the kids, and I still have the kids that like all of your characters are looking for. So there you go.
And he knows their faces, unlike you, the characters in your films.
Yeah, if you're watching this episode, like
If you're one of the 12 viewers today,
that would be amazing. Leave a comment, okay, and hit that bell. No, just kidding.
hit the bell, subscribe. Give us a plug on one of your press tours for
No,
the next
please do
movie
not.
with a one-name title that no one understands.
Please do not. Okay, so I watched it and it was fine, but I agree with the people who say there's some interesting ideas in here, but it's too little, too late, and not really cohesive, and as you said, it's messy, like not clean enough. And that's where, like, for me, I love Memento because as you're going along, like, you get it, like you really get it, and you get to that midpoint thing and put, like all that stuff, like when you flip, and like it's brilliant when you like use the photograph, developing in order to do the color shift. Like
Once again, Luke is just going off on how much he loves Memento.
I love this movie, right?
Is amazing.
Yeah, and because it's tight and it makes sense. Whereas, as you guys have been talking, right? Like this is a movie that you watch and you're like, well, it probably makes sense. I understand what's going on, but like there are no points in the movie where I was like, that was an awesome revelation. Watching the film, there was nothing that made me go, oh, which is why when you said, what about the big, reveals? And I'm like, what big reveals? There is stuff where you give me new information, but it's presented in such a bland and uninteresting manner that I don't really care.
I might be the person who likes this movie the most in this group.
It's possible.
So
I'm indifferent.
There's stuff that happens that's okay, but like there was nothing where I was like, whoa, and they're like, well, he blew up a plane. I'm like, okay, if you want a cool plane stunt, like watch Rogue Nation. It was fine, but it wasn't anything where I was like, I'm having a great time. I'm really enjoying the revelations that are coming. I really feel like this stuff is good. And even like, hey, we just shot you with an inverted bullet. I'm like, okay. But then like the lack of clarity of what's actually happening or going to happen just makes the stakes totally uninteresting to me. So there's a lot of disinterest throughout the film.
Yeah, and I have no way to argue against that, to be perfectly honest, right? For as interested as I was watching the movie, for as much as I liked the concepts, leaving the theater feeling like, well, I want to watch this again to make sure I've got it right, I think is the bad taste that's in my mouth right now, right? Like, I shouldn't have to watching Memento, on the other hand, you get that moment and you just, everything clicks in your head and you're like, yeah, that's how I want to feel when I leave the theater, right? Mm-hmm. I want to understand and I want to see where it's moving from there. Mm-hmm.
There's the revelations in Memento, which I love, just really help make me want to watch the film again. Right. Whereas the revelations in this film, I was like, oh, okay. But there was nothing where I was like, I want to go back to that moment because that moment felt great.
Right. Okay, Jonathan, I need to give you a chance to talk because you mentioned some filmmaking decisions that were made, presumably by Nolan in this movie, that you wanted to talk about.
Well, my biggest beef with Nolan in this movie, and he's been getting more and more trigger happy with it. It's becoming a part of his style now ever since Interstellar. Interstellar was the first place I noticed it was like, what are you doing? And then Dunkirk, I think it works more in Dunkirk, in part because of the dialogue doesn't really matter. And in this movie, he's made the same choice, which is occasionally or often to turn up the volume of the music and or sound effects so that there's still people talking, but you can't quite hear them. In fact, you may not be able to hear them at all because the music and stuff is very, very loud.
Right, but and I've been reading all those headlines. I've seen all that, and then I watched a video essay because I try and get like, what am I missing from this movie? And there's a video essay that's like, this is brilliant.
I don't buy it. And here's the thing. It's because exposition matters, especially in a Nolan film. If you're trying to explain something through dialogue, it's really helpful if you can hear what people are saying when they explain something. And let's be honest. Inception, which I very much enjoy from Nolan, is about 2 hours of exposition with some fight scenes. Okay? And this movie is not terribly different because, once again, we have a concept that's so dense and so complicated that we're constantly have to learn about what does it mean to be an inverse? What does it mean to be dealing with inverse things? How could that have happened? Even there's like heist moments, right? And in any heist sequence, the classic thing to do is to say, here's your alarm system. It goes off when you touch the floor. So that way when Tom Cruise sweats and his sweat's about to hit the floor, you have tension because you actually know what that means.
And you're invested. Yes, there's stakes.
Yeah. Imagine if they were like, well, let me walk you through Langley, and then the music just came up and you couldn't hear anything we were saying. And you saw some visuals, maybe you got it, maybe you didn't. And then you get to that sequence with Tom Cruise sweating, and then you're like, he's sweating, it's gonna touch the floor.
And he catches it instead.
Well, although to be honest, visual filmmaking, you probably would actually catch it in Mission Impossible. But I don't think it's that good at visual filmmaking in Tenet. I don't think you catch on to what's going on that way. It's not a giant floor that goes from white to red when something touches it. It's subtler stuff because Nolan likes to be grounded, right? He wants to be grounded, and he also wants to be incredibly, fantastically, complicated and have all his fun too. And that's the thing. Like, again, I feel like I might be the person who likes this movie the most, but I strongly disagree with that decision. And from what I understand, it is a Nolan decision that he is choosing deliberately to do that. It's not like a mistake where they happen to turn the slider of volume up a little too loud on the music for that section of the movie. He is doing this, whatever, like he's trying to do this thing where he's bringing out this emotion or something. It's not necessarily even avant-garde. He's making a choice, and I disagree with that choice. I think that, particularly in this movie, Dunkirk, maybe. This movie, I don't think so. I think you need to hear everything they're saying. If you don't need to hear it, then why have people talking? That's the thing I feel about Interstellar. He has a few sequences where he blasts the music, and you can't hear what they're saying. Excuse me. And that's okay, in part because, like, one of the sequences is a launch, and it's like you hear a countdown or something. It's like, I don't need to hear the countdown to know that they're launching a spaceship. I can see that. So if you want to, but then why put the countdown in there, or why have dialogue at all? If you want to blast the music and make you feel things, why do you have characters talking still? Like, I don't understand the motivation to have both at the same time if you want to overpower one with emotion, especially in a movie where exposition is so clutch in every single piece of it. So it's a decision. It's an intentional decision. And I intentionally decide to disagree with it because I don't think it works.
Well, an exposition, I agree with the video essay and down below, where the exposition is a problem because you're telling us things instead of experiencing those things as a film, right? We're not actually seeing it happen. We're being told that this happened or this is going to happen or whatever, right? So, like, going back to like a Mission Impossible or whatever, especially if you're going to set up like this is what's going to happen, like you often see what would happen if you were to do it. Like there's this like experience where you see what's going to happen, or it's very clearly like this you're going to be in the glass box and the guys with the big guns are going to show up, and you're just like, oh, okay, I get it. Whereas here, it's a lot more just like we're having this conversation about something, and then it's like, okay, now we're practicing holding our breath for 10 seconds, and then here we go. And like, it's not that I didn't know what was happening. I just wasn't feeling it. I didn't feel this like tension about it. It was just like, here's this thing happening. And there wasn't also the joy of like, hey, look at them pulling this thing off.
Well, Nolan decided in this film, apparently, to very much so, for the majority of it, kind of take a reveal beats everything approach. And by that, I mean a heist movie, shows you all the stuff, makes it very clear, it gives you the tension. It's like, will it work that way or will it not work that way? And, oh, no, the plan got complicated. What do we do now? That's very classic story structure, narrative stuff, and it's very good. It's very effective. We all like it. It works. Nolan chose to take more of a go on a ride with me approach, which is I'm not going to tell you how this fire truck, other truck, car heist in the thing goes, because ultimately, because there's not a ton of complications that go down that change everything. So it's just I need these things. We're going to go do a heist on the road, and we get to we get that planning sequence at the same time as it's being executed. So we get to ride it, right, and feel it and get the reveals of those things. Or we get to have the reveal of the chamber thing actually working and the guy being in there on the other side. Like, I feel like Nolan was just choosing constantly to want to reveal information to us at the last possible second and make you feel a reveal. And I think it sort of undercut him in the sense of, if you don't have enough setup, if you don't have enough plants, if you don't have enough information in the outset, those reveals end up being weightless or just not as weighted as they could be. They don't mean as much as they could because you haven't been building towards it. You haven't been thinking about it. You haven't been having that tension back and forth about it. At the same time, I do think there's something fun. I think this sort of works like the whole movie sort of works as a partial reveal because it is going backwards at a certain point. And so you get the stuff where if you don't know, he fights himself and you're like, oh, it's that same sequence and we're back here and we're doing it over again. Or I had some fun with the temporal pincer movement, and I'm a sci-fi geek, so I just had some fun with some of the ideas of blue team is going in inverse to this fight. So what's happened is they've already gone through this entire event that we're about to go do, and they've already given us intel about what's going to happen. And I thought that was a fascinating idea, but like you said, they're telling us about it. Right? Like these interesting things are just things they're telling us about.
We don't even see the moment where the captain gets this new bit of intel and he's like, well, we had this plan and now, holy crap, we're going to have to do this. There was nothing. It was just like, hey, by the way, we already know stuff. So like, we're going to have to go do it. And you're like, okay.
It's fascinating. Another way to say it is they kind of brush over the fact that Robert Pattinson totally gets shot in the face and dies to save John David Washington's character. That happens in the movie. I mean, right? We all understand that. In part because Robert Pattinson and the captain guy are talking, and there's three of them are talking in the field at the end, and they reveal to him that someone saved them and someone got them out of the cage. He's like, oh, it has to be me. Then I have to go back in inverse and do that. And in the moment of the movie when that actually happens, I think for most people, for the vast majority of audiences, I'm pretty sure what they thought was like, wait, what was that? What just happened? Like, did someone get shot? The door's open now? Okay, they're fighting. They're figuring things out. Will they get the bomb? Because it's too much too fast and they don't know. And there's no tension or draw. And even the reveal is so subtle that you don't even get the tragedy of it, right? Like, again, I'm on my A game watching this movie. So someone gets shot in the face. And I've watched a lot of movies. So my visual cues, the subtlety cues, like I can catch on pretty dang fast with this kind of thing. So I see someone get shot. I know they have a blue armband, and we don't see their face, but they get shot. That saves the guy's life, and it gets them out of the cage, right? And so I go, that's got to be Robert Pattinson. That's got to be that character coming in to save them. But then, as I saw him getting closer and closer to that, I didn't think, oh, man, I'm about to see the inevitability come to play where he saves them. Instead, he, goes to a truck and gives them a rope so he can get him out of there, and then he says he has to go back. And so even though I knew he was going to do that, they even undercut the tension when you even know that's what's going to have to happen. Like, it's kind of fascinating how again, it's just kind of a whirlwind of information, a whirlwind of stuff. He chooses to cut out information, which is classic. You just don't show this information, reveal it when you go back to that moment. They're having that card chase where the card's going in reverse, and the one card's going in reverse or whatever. The two cards are going in reverse. End up being, he sees himself, and so he threw himself the device to save the world, and then that car crashes, and everything goes bad. But he already knew it crashed. Like, how do I say this? As complicated as it all is to even explain to you what's going on, once you understand it, it doesn't hold a lot of weight. And it's kind of like, why would that character make that decision? Or why did you not show us that already? It could have been, why not reveal that earlier and then reveal it later? And I do, again, the whole movie sort of is interesting in the sense of you're going through and you're kind of talking about inverse stuff, bullets or mechanics or where is he getting his information from the future? How does, you're doing all that stuff. And it's pretty standard, but you think the one inverse thing is kind of like bullets or something. You may know from the trailer, remember, it's got to be people at some point, but you're kind of thinking it might be like a person or it might be, it's all this technology until it sort of switches on you and you find out they have these machines you walk into and you come out the other side. Now you're going backwards.
Yeah. And that also kills it, right? Because you've got this whole thing of like, well, there's this metal that keeps showing up and it's weird. There's this tech, and that's like, but we can also just do people too. And you're like, well, okay, so what then? And like all this stuff. And speaking of like ruining the tension moment and all this, like I am such a sucker for like the kick the dog things, especially when it's shoot the girl things. Okay, like if you shoot the girl, I'm like, you're going down. So Sephiroth, like you're dead. Like all of this, like I am so hyper high strung for that stuff. And so then like they're showing you like, here's the bullet hole in the glass already, and she's sitting there. So you're like, oh, okay, you're gonna get hit with this inverse bullet, and that's supposed to be a bad thing. And yet, like while people are yelling and there's like backward tracks that are being reversed for you so you can hear it and understand it, which I was even like, okay, I don't even understand how that works from a time dilation perspective, because we're like I like my brain's more just like, I don't understand this right now, like I understand what's going on, but like I don't understand it. So that's kind of taking me out of the film instead of enjoying it. And this whole thing's going down, and then like she gets hit with the inverted bullet, and I'm just like, I don't, like at this point in time I don't care. There were parts earlier where I was like, oh, crap, stuff's going to go down with her, and that was going to be so scary. But, like, by the time we got to that moment, I was like, whatever.
Yeah, as you're saying that, I'm kind of reminded of our main villain and kind of what his motivations were told are in the movie.
Told,
not shown. Exactly. And that alone rubs me the wrong way. Like, I mean, I think it makes me like this movie even less than I thought I already did or didn't. But it was kind of one of those moments where you're just like, okay, and now I have no care. You try and make me feel bad because he's going to die and anyways and take the whole world with him. But
I didn't feel bad. I don't know you're supposed to feel bad for him at the end. I think you are. I think that the tension's supposed to be, if she shoots him too early, the whole thing goes wrong. Except that we're in the past.
Right. So, yeah, right. And so it's like, I don't feel this right now. Well, I was more like, are you trying to get him to slip off the edge so he bonks his head? Like,
yeah.
Well, okay. Again, it seems like I like this movie the most out of all of this because some of these moments worked well enough for me. I think that that character and her son and that thing and the abusive relationship and her trying to get out, like that is the core emotional section.
Agreed.
Of this film. If you don't like that, if you're not in emotionally on that, you've got no emotion, I think, in this movie. It's all heady stuff and action and like, what are we going to do? And that's fine. But if you want to have an emotional core, you need something. And that was it. That this character and her struggle to get out of under his thumb is it. And I had that sort of, okay, we got to go briefly to Dunkirk. Okay. And just because I think the other thing that Nolan's really doing here is he's starting to love more and more this idea, I think, of impending doom tension, where instead of the high setup and you know that, and then you see how things go wrong, Inception, you do more of a Dunkirk thing where things are happening and you're like, this is chaos and crazy. And then you eventually see how this impending doom that's going to happen in about 10 to 20 seconds is going to screw everything up so bad. And it's kind of the same with the bullet in inverse. It's established, it's there, but it takes you a little bit before you realize, oh, wait, that's going to have to go through her, because, I mean, you obviously start to realize, okay, that's what's going to happen, but it's so close to you that you're like, it's right here. I don't have time to think about it. It's coming. And I feel that squirm maybe in my stomach. And for me, while it wasn't super visceral, I definitely felt that, and I cared for it, and I was curious, but it wasn't devastating like a tragedy. It was just like, oh, it's that sort of impending doom tension thing that he's been getting into more and more. And
I can see that, but my feeling was much more curious than anything else, right? Where I'm like, okay, so what are you going to do about it? I mean, clearly you're going to go through the turnstile, and then we're going to find I'm so lost in the minutia of what any of this means. I can't feel the tension. I do not understand. I do not get that, like I don't know the stakes. The stakes are not there for me.
Well, and I would just the whole end battle sequence and the whole we got to get the algorithm and you got to stop the thing so that the time doesn't reverse course and rip itself apart and all that kind of stuff. They have a conversation. Robert Pattinson and John W. Washington have a conversation in a cargo container going backwards in time. Okay, and this is where John W. Washington's sort of like, wait, so is everything that's happened already happened? Like, is everything that we're about to do already happened? And Robert Pattinson's like, basically, yes. That's one theory, though. The other theory is essentially paradoxical and alternate timeline theory and that kind of stuff, and it gets bad. So there is a theory that you can change everything and it gets bad. Or everything that's already happened, like everything we're about to do because we're going backwards, has already happened, and we're just living it out, right? And I actually really enjoy that question and concept. But truly, I don't even know how much you guys pay attention to that, because that's a core idea, I think, that's really interesting. And it shows up there in a conversation. Again, you're being told. And he talks and references it again, and you see that it comes to play out a certain way. It does end on a certain end of the equation, which is not paradoxical or alternate timeline theory, but rather everything that has happened truly has happened. Whatever you're about to do, if you're going backwards, has happened. That is the game they're playing.
Right, you have to have dropped it.
Right. And I like that. I think it's a really cool, really good concept to play with. If you want to see that concept done well, it's the movie called 12 Monkeys, which deals with this idea that time cannot be changed. Everything that you do or go back to do has already happened. And that is because time is whatever you can't change things except that you already did, if that makes sense, which is sort of a paradox, totally, because time travel, and any time travel story is going to have that problem. But you've already done it, right? And that was an interesting concept. But at the same time, if you actually have any concept of that, if you actually have a thought about it, and you actually believe, like you've seen 12 Monkeys, and you've already thought about it, and you're like, well, I actually really like that version of time travel, which I do. That end sequence, while it's sort of tense and you're sort of curious how it's going to play out, is more about who lives and dies rather than any sort of fate of the world thing. I have no fear that the world's going to get ripped apart. None whatsoever. Not just because it's a movie, not just because it's because we're in the past, and I buy into this other concept of how things work, and so it couldn't possibly be wrong. How would that be?
Right, and I think it's Filmento. Link below talks about how this movie ends in the wrong place because there is no emotional core to that place. It's just this bland thing, and you never see the bad guys, so you don't even know what like again, there is no sense of stakes because stuff's just happening around us. And
but I mean, there are stakes. It's just that it's kind of convoluted, and or you undercut him with your own concept. Right. And again, there's stakes. There's a sense of tension about will she shoot him or not, but at the same time, does it matter? I mean, it does, because you're watching everything play out and you're wondering if it will happen in time. But at the same time, if you understand the concept well enough at that point, you know that they have to have done it. Like, there's no way for her to have killed him early.
And I, like, especially at that point in time, I don't even know if I, like, even felt any kind of sense of, oh no, is she going to shoot him at the wrong time? Like,
right.
I didn't even feel it. Like, I know that there were some lines of dialogue about it, but like, there was no feeling for me on that.
I suppose she could have been killed or something, or like, and that's not where they go. And I, there's some sort of catharsis to it, and you get that moment, which again, the sort of, if you're gonna go back in the past and see yourself, you get one of those moments where she looks at herself and dives off, and you realize the story she told where she was envious of herself in the future. That's what she was envious of, right? Like, and there's a little loop closed on that, and that's kind of fun. But the real core story could have been the friendship between Robert Pattinson and the protagonist. That could have been a really core story, so that you really feel the tragedy of I'm dying to save you right now. And you're going to meet me, and you're going to train me this whole time, and then you're going to recruit me, and that's going to be the last thing that you know me from, right? Like, there's a beautiful inverse, sort of strange relational core, emotional core you could mine there, and it's there, but once again, it's kind of lost because you're talking about it rather than really showing it. At the same time, I bought into that relationship, and I like them as friends, but you're getting too much going on. You're losing your emotional cores, and you're just kind of undercutting your stakes. It's really kind of fascinating.
Well, on that note, gentlemen, I think it's time for us to recommend something besides Tenet to our viewers to watch.
Okay, well, if you want to see a time-changing thing where stuff happens, Steins Gate is overall a lot of fun and crazy and does some pretty insane things. I will say that if you do not like one of the characters, like I do not like, it may be hard to get through the show because you're like, well, I hate this character, and this character is kind of central to the film, or to the show. But Steins Gate is a blast because there's definitely a moment where you get to we're in this time, where we're going through time again kind of thing. And then you're like, oh, wait. If that's true, then that means this is about to happen, and the stakes are so high, it's insane, and it's great.
I still need to see that because I tried watching it with them, and I was tired, so I fell asleep. And it's an anime, and anime's good, but I'm used to that action anime, and they were just talking a bunch, and I was like, I'm tired of reading subtitles or hearing the dub, and they're just talking, and I don't care, and they're trying to drop clues, and I'm not catching on, and so
Christina!
Yeah, see, Christine. Oh, gosh. Anyway, okay. So that's yours. 12
Monkeys for him.
Yeah, it's 12 Monkeys for me, just because I referenced it already. But really, let's go hardcore film knowledge, all right? La Jetée. That's right. A French short film of which 12 Monkeys is based on.
Are you recommending La Jetée?
I'm recommending La Jetée. And if you're too American
for it... Good luck
for
finding that one.
It is hard to find. It's Criterion Collection. You can probably find it if you get a subscription service or whatever. Anyway, if you can't find that, which is totally understandable, watch 12 Monkeys, Bruce Willis and Brad Pitt. It's bizarre.
Very odd.
Terry Gilliam is a weird dude who does weird stuff, but it does have a really cool time travel mechanic, which I already spoiled. So watch that and see how that goes for you. It's a very weird movie. I like La Jetée probably more in the experience, but that's also weird. So weird time travel stuff. La Jetée, 12 Monkeys, time has already happened.
I'm going to break away from the time travel side of things completely.
It's a theme. You're breaking the theme.
Yeah, and frankly, for this one, I don't really care. I'm actually going to recommend you go and watch the new, I believe, Disney Pixar movie Soul. I watched this a little ways back now and just enjoyed it. It's not a great movie. Apparently, the ending that they have is not the original ending, which I'd love Luke to watch a link below thing on, but he probably won't.
I already watched a video essay on Soul, and there you go.
Oh, okay. Anyways, I thought it was an enjoyable movie. I love the jazz music concept to it. I love the realization of the main character and the growth that he does through this movie. And yeah, it was just fun and enjoyable, and that's what I needed. So,
and yeah, Just Right's video essay is actually pretty good. So,
on that note, thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you again next time.
Or we've already caught you next time.
We have to drop them and end this to start this.